Thanks again, David. Welcome, everyone. I see people still joining, but we'll just do some quick announcements and housekeeping, and then we'll probably get started with the meat of it, probably around 1:05, but we'll do some introductions. So I'm Kitsi Aviles, District 4 Director, and I want to give Stephen Chen, our PR Manager. I don't know if he's on, I think he's on the phone. Kudos, because he reached out to David and set this up for us today on short notice. And thanks to all of you for joining us on short notice. I do ask that everybody please mute themselves if you're not speaking. And I think we can mute everybody else as well, right, Katrina, if needed. And we will be recording. We're actually already recording, and I think we're going to clip out all of that and just have the meat of it. To share with everyone later on if you missed it. And David is also working on a blog post for us. So we're going to be having lots of information coming your way. To answer Jay's question, we literally just got new guidance from Toastmasters International last night that we are no longer to host events in person. So that includes club meetings, contests, etc. So online is the way to go going forward, which is part of why we're doing this, to give you the tools to figure out how to do this. As we know, different companies are also reducing work in person and going remote. And so having online meetings is going to be part of our lives. And so we're hoping that this webinar and our clubs can help us bridge that gap and exercise this muscle. And so for those of you who want to continue on this, we'll give you an idea of how to do that. And David is here from Online Presenters Toastmasters. They're a fully online club. I visited them. I was very impressed. And when this happened, I thought we have to reach out to them. They've already figured this out, so why reinvent the wheel? And they have, David has graciously agreed to do this webinar for us today. He was one of the founders of that club. And he's brought with him some of his members who also have this expertise to really show us all the tips and tricks that they've already figured out, so we don't have to start from scratch. So we really want to thank you, David, for being here, and all of you for taking the time to join us and figuring this out with us. And I know David said he's going to have some time for questions as well. So at that time, we can address any questions related to TI's announcement or the technology or anything else. And just know that the district is literally, we're just got this information. We are meeting internally with the top 4, as well as the district executive committee, which is all the area and division directors, really soon, to figure out how, if anything is going to change going forward, other than everything has to go online. So we will have more information to you about all of that very soon.
So you're actually being prohibited from meeting in person, or?
Yeah, now they have officially made the call that we have to go all online. That includes division, that includes area, division, and district contests, and district council meetings, and club meetings. So everything is now online. Yeah, so I do encourage you. I don't know how much volume you have, David, in your club, but if you want to see how it's done fully, you guys are going to for sure, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, somebody posted in the chat, how do you attend an online club? If you Google online presenters or online presenters Toastmasters, you will find our club website. We're pretty well SEO'd, and you RSVP to register for the meeting, and we'll send you the link to sign in. So similar to attending a webinar just like this. So visitors are always welcome. I always wanted to get more West Coast people in, but our meeting is like a little bit too early. You know, we start at 7:15 Eastern time, which is the end of the workday for a lot of you. So carrying people away from their work has not always worked out that well. But anyways, we'll dive into it.
Yeah, as far as, just really quick, there was a question about online meetings and the majority in attendance. That's been waived, Jenny. That's the exception that TI has made, that we are now allowed to meet fully online, and people who are in that online meeting are considered quote unquote in person as far as that policy is concerned for doing club business. So that's been taken care of. So for now, I'm going to hand it over to David, and we will hopefully have some time at the end to answer any of those questions. But we are working as a district to put together something separate where we can address those questions as well, because I know there will be more. So let us have our meeting, figure some things out, and then we'll have a meeting for the district about this later in the week. All right, take it away, David.
All right, terrific. And yes, I'm absolutely here to answer questions. I think that's probably one of the best values that I can offer in addition to the canned presentation. So I do have some slides to walk through, but we don't necessarily want to concentrate there. I can discover where my mouse is. There we go. I am a writer, editor, to some extent a digital consultant. I published a book on digital collaboration a couple of years ago. And so hopefully one of the things you'll do after this meeting is go to my LinkedIn and send me a note so I know where you know me from. And I'll be happy to connect and answer questions on an ongoing basis. I am also actively looking for contract opportunities, potentially job opportunities. So, but that's not why you asked me to come here. Let's see. I'm here because I was the founding president and principal indicator. I had a lot of help with setting up Online Presenters Toastmasters in 2017. That was part of how I got my DTM. And yes, we meet fully online. Some of my best friends in this club I have never met in person and may not meet in person ever or for a long time. It was set up with the stated mission of helping people practice skills that they could use in professional webinars and business meetings conducted online. But just as by the nature of the thing, we also wound up becoming a very international club, where we have a member from Kazakhstan. We have several members, well, maybe just one currently from Australia, and parts of Asia, as well as throughout the United States. And a little cluster of people like Lois, who were invaluable because they were friends and they helped me get it started. So we have a cluster of people from South Florida, which is where I live. There are really two options for going online, and maybe based on the district guidance you just shared, maybe the mixed online offline is off the table, but to some extent, I think you still might have a few people gathering in the same room. In some ways, this is more complicated than holding an entirely online meeting, is to try and involve people who are remote, but have still have your in-person meeting. I actually tried this for the first time at Club Awesome Toastmasters in Coral Spring, Florida, which is my home club. I tried it for the first time on Friday. And it came about fairly suddenly that several members were nervous about attending, including one of the speakers. And so we were planning to do it eventually, and suddenly it became, you got to do it this Friday. So I share to some extent the experiences you have about becoming, the hashtag seems to be suddenly virtual or suddenly remote, in both in work and in Toastmasters and lots of other experiences. The complications of trying to do it this way, one of the big ones is audio, which I've already mentioned. Trying to figure out the placement of the microphones and placement of maybe multiple cameras in the room. So if you're trying to do it mixed and you're trying to make the people who are remote feel like they are participating on an equal level, that actually is quite challenging. At least if everybody is in an online meeting, you are in kind of a level playing field. So the problems: you can't hear, you can't speak, you can't see. All these things will come up, along with you're hearing things you don't want to hear. You're letting your mic go live when you didn't intend it to, or you're showing things on the screen that you didn't intend to show. So you're going to have to think through how, if you're participating from home or any other setting, trying to get to a quiet place with few distractions in the background. You might want to experiment with using the virtual background or green screen setups. You'll see a number of online presenters, Toastmasters folks doing that. Lois has a virtual background today, but don't mess with that when you're just getting started. Just try and present yourself on camera as best you can. Try and be in a clean place, maybe with a plain background. If you could position yourself with just a wall to your back, that might be good. You need to get familiar with the online meeting controls in whatever environment you choose. It's almost universal that the online clubs have settled on Zoom as the best environment, and that is the one that we're using right at this very moment. So you can get some experience with it right here. Knowing where to find the mute, unmute button and video on and off button is very important. They're in the lower left-hand corner on Zoom. If you're using some other environment, find out where those are. The up arrows next to the two icons, by the way, would allow you to select if you have multiple microphones or multiple cameras available. It's not uncommon for people to have multiple microphones, for example, a headset versus the built-in one on the laptop. And people sometimes have problems with not knowing which one is selected. Then to the center of that panel, there are controls for seeing who all the other participants are, sharing your screen, and participating in chat. And I'll have more to say about some of those things later on. I'm not going to get too much into the screen sharing techniques. There are some blog posts up on Online Presenters that can talk you through that. This is Zoom specific, but may be relevant to some other environments. In Zoom, you go in initially and you see this gallery view where you see all or many of the participants. Kind of depends on how many people are online, whether they all fit on one screen. And you toggle between that and the active speaker view where you see just the person who is speaking. So learning your way around those controls is important. Lighting is a big deal. The camera built into your laptop is probably fine, but if you're in a place with dim lighting, you may not come across, you may have a grainy video. And if you're trying to do anything fancy with green screens, it may not work. This is an Online Presenters member, Jim Gold. He and his wife run a computer training business. They actually travel around the country in an RV, giving seminars on technology for travelers. And they do a weekly YouTube live show. They've also done some stuff with Zoom. This is from a workshop that's available on the Online Presenters site about how they set up their home studio. I'm not saying that everybody needs to get this fancy, but you'll see that he has several lights. He's trying to bounce them off the ceiling and off the wall so that he has some indirect light coming at him as well as direct light. So if you can't get that fancy, just try and get a couple of extra lights into whatever space you are going to be participating from. Try and make sure you're well lit if at all possible. Again, if you're doing this for the first time and it's not perfect, no big deal. Take your time, get into it. Timing is an issue. If you saw when I switched from the gallery view to the active speaker view, the images shifted around. A few images were still visible in the sidebar, little thumbnail images of the other participants. But often, if the timer is trying to show you green, yellow, and red, you may lose track of that particular video feed, particularly if it's a large meeting. So that can be a complication. We have used some techniques for doing the background screen as the green, yellow, and red indicators. People have gotten comfortable with that. You can do it just by holding up green, yellow, and red objects. People sometimes find funny objects that they want to use for that purpose. I have found that, again, in terms of lighting, sometimes it can be hard to tell green from yellow, or even a red. If it's a pale red, may not be clear what it is that you're holding up. So the virtual background is a good solution to that. People sometimes find fun green, yellow, and red images to feature in the background. The more improvised method that we use at the hybrid online-offline meeting we conducted the other day was I had my smartphone as a second video device aimed at the timer so that you potentially could see the green, yellow, red timing lights. Not a great solution, but again, we hustled it together on short notice. All I'm saying is you need to think through how you're going to conduct timing in the online meeting. One of the things that we do as well, because people sometimes lose track of the timer's video feed, is you can give an audible signal. So somebody just says green, yellow, red at the appropriate times. Got to remember to unmute when you do that. Somebody else was just tapping on a wine glass as a signal that time is going on. A good option too is to get the Toastmasters timer app and have that on the table next to you. So you have your own timing device and you aren't necessarily relying on the person who is timing you remotely. The chat feature is important. It's back channel conversation. Remember I just said that we encourage everybody to mute their microphones. Well, people still need to communicate. They need to tell somebody that there's a problem. Maybe they need to get the Toastmaster of the day's attention to announce a change of plans. We do also do voting using this tool. Again, I'm showing Zoom specific, but there should be a similar tool in many of the other environments that you could choose. I'm showing here how you switch between sending a chat message to everyone and sending it to a specific person. So we send our votes as private chat messages to the vote counter. Evaluations also are somewhat of an issue. I guess thanks to Pathway, we now have PDFs that we can email back and forth. But emailing the PDF and printing it, scanning it, sending it back always struck me as pretty awkward. You might be able to do it as some kind of fill-in form if you've got the right version of Adobe. But we do have this online evaluation tool that we've used. I might have mentioned that I run something called the WordPress for Toastmasters project, and that is something that I cooked up as part of this. So for our club, you can actually click on next to a speech on the agenda. There'll be a link that says evaluation, and it'll open up a screen that looks like that. The resulting report gets saved to the website. It also gets emailed off to the person who's just been evaluated. It works pretty well. But do whatever you're comfortable with, whatever is practical. Emailing the PDFs back and forth is sometimes more convenient as well. I've heard a lot of concerns from people who weren't that far along in collecting dues when all of a sudden they were not allowed to meet in person. So how do you do that online? From the beginning, Online Presenters Toastmasters has collected dues online because that was the only way to do it. I use an integration with Stripe that again is factored into the WordPress for Toastmasters project. So there is a tool here for paying. You can sign up for PayPal and get a little HTML snippet to embed in any website. So there are ways of doing it. Contests. Well, this is an issue. All of a sudden, we're being asked to run our contests online, and this is something that Online Presenters does have experience with. That is Lois Margolin winning our contest last year. If I go back through these, you notice most everybody has arranged it so that they can be standing. This one speaker did give a slideshow presentation. You would have seen a thumbnail image as part of that screen if you'd been watching live, but it wasn't captured in the video for whatever reason. But you can set up your room so that you can stand and give your speech rather than sitting down in front of the computer like I'm doing now. And one of my pieces of advice, which may or may not be followed, we're still sorting things out like everybody else, is trying to maybe at least bring the contestants together in one physical location so that they can stand on a stage or at the front of a room and give their speech and have it video broadcast out to judges and other functionaries who might be remote. So like everybody else, we're in District 47, we're trying to figure this out. Lois is actually our contest chair or contest co-chair. And so she has the pleasure of trying to iron out some of those details. We did also cook up this online judging and ballot counting tool. This was originally embedded in the WordPress for Toastmasters project. I have made it available separately so that you can go to contest.toastmos.org and set up a contest scoring sheet. It helps you tally up and rank the results. The judge still gets to decide whether the way those scores came out is how they really feel about who should be first, second, and third. So they make their choices here. They need to check something that says, record this as the official vote. And I'm trying to get TI to approve that as being the equivalent of a signature. I have done some work recently on making this more mobile friendly. This was at the request of somebody who wanted to use it in a brick and mortar meeting where people might want to bring their phones rather than having to fuss with a laptop. And the chief judge and vote counters can be watching on a dashboard as the votes come in. So it does simplify the process of doing vote tabulation. So that's available. I'm not claiming that it's approved by TI. I'm actually trying to see if they can be persuaded to at least not actively object to it. And that is all for the CAN presentation. I have a number of online coordinates there where you can come to follow up with me. And I think this would be a good point to pause and take a breath and ask for questions. I imagine questions may have been going on in the chat. I haven't had a chance to review that just yet. But
David, there were a few questions in the chat. One was, is this going to be made available to the district, this presentation?
I'll ask I volunteered to do at least my edit of the video recording and share it with them, but and I assume they're going to offer a replay.
Yes, we'll post it on our website. I think the more immediate question was, are you willing to share the slide deck itself? Some people
Sure.
may want to, go through that. So great. Yes, once you give us the recording, we'll post that on our website. For District 4, we're working on a website off of our COVID-19, specifically on online meetings, and we'll kind of gather all the resources there. So there will be an email going out with all these details in the next few days once we have it all put together.
Okay, great. Other questions right now? One of the things we wanted to do was try a table topics session so that you got a sense of how that works in an online setting. Is Elaine Nieberding here?
She is not. She had trouble. She wanted me to send you a private chat, but since you're asking about it, she just sent me an email, said she had trouble with her computer restart, delayed joining attempt failed. So sorry. So she's not going to make it, it sounds like.
Okay. All right. Well,
David, you
All
do
right.
have a couple of other questions if I can throw them at you.
Sure. Thanks, Lois.
Sure. First, somebody would like you to share your WordPress Toastmaster link that they can see it.
Okay. I'll
Also,
put
how
that in
many
the
people
chat.
can be in a Zoom account at one time?
Oh, that's a good point. But the limit on the number of people who can sign in is quite generous. So even the free account allows up to 100 people. However, the free Zoom account is limited to 40 minutes. Now, what you might do is have 40 minutes worth of meeting and plan things out so you can take a 5-minute break at that point, start up another meeting and send out the link and reconvene. If your club has a little bit of money in the budget, it's about $150 a year to get a Zoom account that would remove those time restrictions. So Zoom has also been doing some things about lifting the restrictions on free accounts for educational institutions, at least. So it wouldn't hurt for the district to ask if they could get some kind of exception for their members or extension for their members. They have been doing it on a case-by-case basis, particularly for like K-12 schools that are trying to go online.
Okay, there's also sharing the link. How do you keep attendees from multitasking?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with this in a professional context, is that sometimes people will do that, whether you encourage or discourage that.
Just turn off the camera if you're going to.
Well, that's right. A lot of times people will get a phone call, and that's why it's important to understand also, if you're a meeting organizer, to understand the host controls, so how you can mute other people if they pick up the phone and we're all hearing their conversation because they forgot to hit the mute button. We need to be able to shut them up. And so stuff like that will happen. And I'm guilty of it too. I occasionally get distracted. I'm not that engaged with the speech, and I'm seeing what's on Twitter. So I've made all the mistakes. I've committed all the sins. But yeah, I think what's the best defense? Run an engaging meeting, right? Where people don't want to miss a minute of it.
Yes.
And Lois does a great job with that. I'm sort of kind of the techie, but Lois is the human who runs the club.
Interesting comment. All right, how about this one from Jenny? Microphone recommendations for remote participants.
Yeah, I'm using, well, let's see. First of all, your basic laptop, which is, I guess, is what most of us have these days, has probably a pretty adequate microphone and speakers built in. It helps to be in a quiet place when you're doing that. So you don't necessarily have to do anything fancy. I've often suggested that even if people don't have a complete headset, that they consider just plugging earbuds into the microphone jack of the computer so that there's no audio feedback kind of issue.
Okay.
So that's like the poor man's way of doing it. I do have a wireless mic that I'm wearing right now. If you get your office set up properly and have a good mic, you might want to get an external mic for your computer. You can do it so that you don't have to have something clamped to your head, which some people don't like.
Okay.
But actually, what are you doing, Lois, right now? You don't have a headset on, I don't think.
I do not. I have Logitech speakers, and it goes right through the computer and the Logitech. It's magic. I don't know how it happens. It just happens.
All right. Well, but Lois sounds fine. So there are all sorts of fancier things that you can do, but don't think you have to do them right away. Particularly if you're getting plunged into this world somewhat involuntarily, somewhat suddenly. Just do what you can do to make it work.
I will
I often
say this. I had the big headphones on, and then I got critiqued in one of my evaluations that I looked like a bunny, and that embarrassed me. So I went out and I got headphones like this that has the speaker in it, and it worked fine. But then when I got my new computer, the microphone and everything is in it. Do what's comfortable for you. If you don't like putting things in your ear, then become a bunny and be proud of being a bunny. We've got a lot of questions, so I'm going to kind of roll through these. There's a question about what we do online presenters. So online presenters has purchased a full Zoom account, and the members do not have to have their own personal paid account. I have my own because I do a lot with Zoom. I know David has his own, but it is not a requirement. A lot of our clubs that are going to be doing this over the next few days are going to do exactly what David said, which is they're going to plan their 40-minute break. Stop right then, because you'll get a warning on your screen that says you have 10 minutes for break. So let that speaker finish. Everybody disconnect, come right back in, and you got another 40 minutes free. Does anyone, okay, did you want to say something, David?
I did. No, I forgot what it was. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, there's a question about how do you change the colors manually when you are doing the table, when you're being the timer? Like, how can you change so quickly from one to the next to the next? And I would say for everybody here, not to worry so much about that. I would just get in the beginning until you're more comfortable with Zoom, get 3 items that are highly colored, yellow, green, and find a red, and make sure that people can see the difference. Something bigger than this. Don't worry about your backgrounds. Once you get comfortable with it, you can start downloading and playing with it. There are other Freeline meeting platforms, Google Hangouts, Skype, etc. David, I'll let you have that one.
Let's see. I mean, the last time I looked, I think Google Hangouts, the free version has some limitations on the number of people who can be involved that made it look like it wasn't practical for our club. So, your decision might on technology platform might also be driven by the fact that some club member has an account that they're willing to share, and if you don't have to pay for it, that could be a good thing. That could be a good reason to choose. In fact, we started out using RingCentral Meetings, which is their little wrapper around Zoom. So it was a little bit different, but not that much. But only because I had been doing some consulting for them and had a free account. And then eventually I stopped working for them, and we weren't sure when they would get around to cutting off my free account. So we figured we better get our own.
And Tim Carlisle commented that Zoom is just pretty high quality for audio and video. Jenny asked, can you share a checklist and visual layout of the cameras with input-output settings for an interactive meeting? Don't we have that on our website, Online Presenters?
Well, we have some. Yeah, can we ask the person who asked the question to clarify? Are you talking about for an in-person setting, a hybrid meeting with some local and some remote participants?
Jenny, that was your question? Okay, let's come back because maybe when I get to the end.
All right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of complexity. I'm not an audio engineer, so that was one of the issues that arose when I tried to do a mixed online-offline meeting the other day. We'd hustled together it in a hurry, and if you look at the recording, the sound is pretty awful. So, with experience, it might help to get a wireless microphone that speakers use when they're speaking and have that wired in.
I would also recommend go to op.toast.org. There is a section there, Dave, maybe you have the link at your fingertips, that has a lot of technical stuff, how to set up a green screen, how to do your lighting, how to do all of this, and it's in more detail, and it's step by step. We have some phenomenal technical people, obviously including David, that writes some great blogs about how to do this. So if you're looking for that input output, I'm pretty sure someone took a picture of the back of the computer and said, this is an input and this is an output for people like me that wouldn't know that kind of stuff. All right, so is the Zoom link for a club the same each week? David?
We have been using the same link each week. So Zoom allows you to set up a custom link for a specific event, but you can also have your personal link, or, you know, it's not personal, I guess, if it's owned by an organization, but a link specific to that account that doesn't change. And so that's what we've used. Now, I don't display it publicly on the website. I make people fill out an RSVP form or a registration form first, and they get the link as part of a confirmation message. And that's just so our VP of membership has an idea of who's coming and can be a little bit more prepared. And we also that way get a way of following up with them. But there's nothing to prevent somebody from forwarding that message. And you know, people do sometimes show up unannounced in our meetings, and that's fine.
All right, here's one. Any recommendations for online attendees who are on Wi-Fi internet who are not able to use Ethernet connections?
I'm on Wi-Fi right now. I think Wi-Fi generally isn't necessarily the problem, but you know, it depends. I mean, I wouldn't want to be doing it from a coffee shop if I didn't have to. You can also join from a mobile phone, but I find that to be, you know, pretty awkward. It allows sometimes members to attend when they wouldn't be able to attend otherwise. So that's good, but it's hard to be a full participant and to really see everything and participate in everything that's going on the same level as you can on a laptop.
Okay, this one is questioning, can you share a list of people with experience running online meetings to consult, explore joint meetings as per criteria for area director? I think that's more for Kitsy to take care of that one. Let's see.
We just got a question about, do we assign somebody to monitor and answer questions in the chat? What Lois has volunteered to do for me here. Yes, we have somebody called the chat monitor. So if you're getting heckled in the chat monitor might let you know about that. We also have them give a report at the end of the meeting, reminding people that of, you know, significant things that might have come by in the chat. If somebody shared a link to this or that resource, that kind of thing. And we also try and encourage people to know how to save the chat, because you can save it to your computer. If you look at the chat box, there's three little dots on the right, and one of the options under that menu is Save Chat.
Nice. I was looking for that.
All right.
I want to just interject really quickly here. I've seen a couple of District 4 specific questions. Let's hold off on that. Obviously, David can answer those. But like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, District 4 is meeting with the District Executive Committee, so your area division directors, to strategize around this, and we will send more information around that, either directly from us or through your area and division directors. So hold tight on District 4 specific stuff. And if you have questions about that you're hoping that we answer, just send them directly to me, and I'll make sure that we discuss those as a team and get those answers to you. Thank you. Back to you, David. And
all right. Well.
All right. Well, and that's why I kind of passed on all those. Thank you for addressing it. The question was, what kind of roles do we actually have? Well, we've added, let's see, David, if we can figure this out. We added a chat monitor, and that basically is the person who monitors the chats all day. And then at the end of the meeting, they go ahead and give a report on the chat monitor. We still have the honor, have the grammarian, have a watcher instead of a body language, and the responsibility of the watcher is to report on the framing. You're too small, you're too far back, you're not centered, we can't see you, the light is bad. So the watcher is responsible for looking at everybody. You know, if you're going to eat online, put yourself on stop video? What other special
Yeah.
roles do we have? We still have our speakers, we still have our evaluators, we still have our general evaluator. I think the
Yeah,
two
probably,
new
you know, 95% of it is the same as any other Toastmasters meeting. And as I said, I've had this, you know, branding idea since I started the club, that we should be the club for people who want to learn about how to do webinars. But people still come and give, you know, plain old Toastmasters speeches, humorous speeches, whatever. So
So there is a question about table topics, which I know, David, at one point you were going to have us do table topics. Any suggestion by which paid members are selected randomly for table topics by the table topic master? I think that's the same process that you work within your club. One thing David didn't mention was how you rename yourself. So for instance, if you click on your picture and you do a right click, you should be able to rename your screen. And I know on online presenters, we ask people to rename themselves with their role dash their name. So that way, when somebody comes online, they can see, oh, Cameron's the vote counter and Ken is the general evaluator and this is speaker 1 and speaker 2. And it kind of gives everybody an online idea of what's happening. So if you're the table topic master, you know, don't pick the speakers, don't pick the Toastmaster of the day. So you can go through all the screens and figure out who to select for your table topics. And each club has their own process. Do we ask guests to fill table topics or not? So basically, if you have the renaming going on, I think you'll find that it makes it a little bit easier, because people aren't necessarily going to be looking to having their agenda, because remember, there's no printed agendas anymore. Another computer where you have the agendas up, we're basically watching the on screen to see how things are happening. The only person that might print an agenda would be the Toastmaster day. Agree, David? Disagree?
yeah, no, it's available for you if you want to print it, but you're going to print your own.
Yeah. Also, there's a question on how to store your videos. I know from another club that we have, we store our video on YouTube. David, is that what we do online also, right?
Correct. So the Zoom has a couple of different recording options. You can record to locally to your computer, and a file will be created on your computer, or you can record to the cloud. I actually recommend recording to the cloud, because what you capture then is actually several different views: the speaker view, the gallery view, speaker view with the presentation shown and without the presentation shown. And so particularly if you capture something really dynamite and you want to share that as a replay, you may want to splice some of those things together. But typically what we do is we take the view that has the speaker with any screen sharing, we upload that to YouTube. We do make those publicly available. It's an advanced club, and you know that's kind of what the big boys do. Is we announce at the beginning of every meeting that this will be recorded and a replay will be available later. So we have a lot of great content that we've generated that way. In my traditional club, we've been doing video recording for years, and we've always had the rule that it won't be shared publicly unless you specifically give permission. So it's just sort of the different social context of the two different settings as much as anything technological. So I would download those cloud recordings from Zoom. Maybe occasionally I'll edit them a little bit and then upload them into YouTube.
Okay. So we had a question about how the watcher actually works. The watcher is another role, just like the grammarian, and gives the report at the end. There's a question whether the evaluator talks about how their speaker looks. That's up to the evaluator. If the evaluator would normally talk about body language, then talk about what you see on the screen. That's up to each individual evaluator. There's also a question about what kind of mistakes did we make in the beginning? Oh my,
All
well,
of them.
I think most of it was not realizing the mute button. And when you go in gallery view, which when you're looking at the very top of your screen, it probably says speaker view, which means you see all the panels, you see 25 people at once. But if you go to speaker view, you only see one person. And I love the little bunny over there, Lauren. And if somebody sneezes or coughs or screams for their spouse, or their dog barks, and you're on gallery view and you are not muted, your picture is going to come up in the middle of the speaker's speech. So I think that was one of my biggest lessons when I went back to review, seeing people that we hadn't muted on a timely basis. So one of the questions was, if the person that owns the account is not there, can they get in also? And the answer is yes, if you set it up like that, that anybody can start the meeting. And usually, like I know on Online Presenters, we have a code that allows us to do the recording and claim the host. And we give the code to the Toastmaster of the day, the president, David, and I don't know who else has the code, probably.
Well, but part of the point of that is it allows you to share the access to that function, claiming the host, without actually saving the password. So you might not want anybody to be able to go in and change basic settings on the account, but you
Give them a
can
host.
still allow them to. Well, you know, you don't. If you're the person who established the account, you don't want to commit to have to be there every single week, and your club doesn't want to be dependent on you that way either.
Okay, many public companies will not allow club meetings to be recorded, lawyers, and we have addressed that. What have we done? We have, if it's a corporate club, then you can't record it, you can't record it. You know, I mean, you just make sure you don't do it.
Right.
What other issues did we have in the very beginning, David? I think the main one was just trying to fumble our way through timing. I think timing was a big deal for us. And
yeah, that's a huge one. And people suggested various techniques for keeping the timer in view, but nothing about it seems to be perfect. I mean, I wish there was some way that you could just add a timing light that would always be on screen in the bottom corner. So anybody here work for Zoom? Just you know somebody who works for Zoom? We have some product suggestions.
I don't work for Zoom, but one thing that you can do is you can pin a specific video or a specific person to the main screen. So when you're in the, when you're not in the tile view, if you just want to see the timer so you don't lose track of that person, you can just pin them. That's what I'm
there is that, but I find that sometimes that doesn't necessarily keep them in focus. If you're the one presenting and you started sharing your screen, the fact that you pin somebody else, I'm not sure that always works. I haven't gotten it to work consistently.
Keep in mind, if you have someone that says green, yellow, red, that person's going to come up on the big screen when you have your replay. Just found that one out too.
Well, right. And so when people are preparing, they've got a really dynamite speech they want to deliver and they want the recording to look good. They often ask, no, don't give me an audible cue. And, you know, that's when you want to have, you know, your smartphone keeping time next to you so that you know when you're blowing your time.
And so there are a lot of questions still on table topics and how you would do it. Here's do I have a volunteer to do table topics? We could do one right now.
Maybe we should get somebody else to be the table topics master. You can be the timer, Lois, since you have green up on the screen right now. We have a volunteer to be a table topics master, just so you can get a little taste of it.
I can try if nobody else wants to volunteer.
Sure.
Be brave. So I'm asking the questions.
Yes.
Okay. I should get I'll just come up with a question. Is Louis, are you answering, David, or should I pick a random person?
No, you should pick somebody here in the audience so that they get experience of trying to keep track of that timer.
Oh, right. I've lost the timer. Let me find the timer myself. But anyway, all right. I'll ask a question. Oh, there she is. All right. So I'm going to do it same as we would do in a regular meeting. I'm going to ask the question and then I'm going to call on someone and then you're going to answer for 1 to 2 minutes. So what do you think about online meetings? And I'm going to throw that question to Lauren. And so Lauren, now you would unmute yourself before speaking and then share your
There
answer.
we go. What do I think of online meetings? To be honest, it doesn't really matter what I think of online meetings because online meetings are happening. I think online meetings under the circumstances are outstanding. We all need to be able to have online meetings. You never know when something's going to happen to a club that will require it suddenly to either not meet or have a meeting online. For example, if you lose your club meeting venue and you happen to have 80 members in your club, you don't have another place to go. You've got to find a way to meet. So I'm all in favor of online meetings, but whether or not I like them, they are certainly coming our way, and I appreciate knowing more about them.
Thank you, Lauren. Woo. This is how you can clap if you're all visible, or yeah, you can do that too. The jazz hand, this is how you do it in sign language.
Yeah, sign language, exactly.
And I think Lauren didn't speak for a full minute, which is why we didn't see the green. Let's try one more. So maybe we can, this person try to talk to you, can see the green somewhere. But that was great, Lauren, thank you. What do you feel will be most challenging for your club if you have to now go to online meetings? Let's see here, Joy. Oh, she just walked away. Isn't that likely? Let me find someone else. I've got to siphon through the... Stephanie, do you want to give that a try? I see you on with your video.
Myself.
There you go. You're on.
Okay, so now you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear
What
you.
do I think will be most challenging as we do an online meeting? I think our first meeting, we're actually having a practice session tomorrow morning. I think there will be mass confusion because I don't think anyone will have read all of the instructions, and many of us are not familiar with this. And so when you get 15 people together or 20 people together and they're all fumbling their way through something new, I don't think there's any way it can be anything other than mass confusion. Now, we normally meet on Tuesdays, which is why we're having a practice session tomorrow. And my hope is that between some practice sessions the officers did last week, our club practice session on Monday, and this session today, I'm hoping that by the time Tuesday comes, we'll only have modest confusion. Because what we want to do is not have it be so bad on Tuesday that our members say, forget this, we'll come back when COVID's over. So personally, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to learn some tools. All of my Red Cross meetings have become Zoom or other meetings, online meetings. I am in the middle of converting my homeowners association to online officers meetings. And excuse me, that was not a dry cough accompanied by a fever, I assure you. Not that it would matter to you because you're not here, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us to gain some skills. And I'm finding that the practice I'm doing, practice I did last week for Toastmasters, is really useful for my Red Cross world and my homeowners world. So mass confusion, but I think we're all going to grow from this.
Awesome, thank you. That was great. And I agree. I think, a lot of us are working from home now, and so Zoom is our life. So what better way than to continue to practice that in our clubs and really get really good at it and stumble through that. And you're right, there's going to be mass confusion at first, but that's part of the fun, right? That's that's what we're in Toastmasters, is to take those quizzes. All right, we only have, I think that's good, David, for the trial. Does everybody have any other questions about table topics? And I did see that.
I have a quick question. I have a quick question if I can ask it. I don't think it came up. What do you do with the applause in your club? Do you guys applaud at the end of each speech, or it's like silent? Do you just move on to the next person?
We do the often the silent applause. I actually think that the lack of sound from the audience is actually one of the things you really have to get used to, because when you're delivering your speech, also you don't get feedback when you said something funny. Is anybody laughing? Well, you might see them rocking back and forth, and that might give you a clue that your joke worked. But you don't get as much energy back from the audience. So it is a drawback. On the other hand, It is not that dissimilar from the environment you would be in if you were giving a professional webinar, where very often there is no audience audio unless the organizer specifically unmutes that person, and questions may be coming in via the chat. And so you do have to kind of deliver off into the void and hope it's working.
But I want to mention or ask David that in your clubs, you do have the video for everyone all the time so that you can at least have that feedback a little bit. I know internally we've talked about that for contests. We probably wouldn't do that
Right.
just to not distract, but for the meeting, it makes sense as long as everybody's muted.
Yeah, and yeah, actually, I've seen that guidance from Toastmasters International where they're saying for the official contests, everybody is supposed to turn off their camera. And actually, I don't know. Oh, I guess I actually can, as meeting host, turn off your camera.
Hmm.
I didn't know I could do that, actually. So probably for the organizer, that's going to be kind of a whack-a-mole issue.
And I can't turn it
is-
back on. There we go. Okay.
You should be able to do it now. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool, that's cool.
I'm abusing my godlike powers. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
But yeah, and I've noticed that in work meetings, even technology companies who I think would be more online friendly, a lot of times people do join with their camera turned off. And I'm like, why are you people so shy? Come on, let me
Yeah, we
see you.
had as Stephanie mentioned, a test meeting with the club, and we talked about that. We wanted to keep the camera on, and it makes sense for a meeting
Right.
to have that camaraderie. Yeah.
Well, and I was on a session with a group called the Community Roundtable that works on how you develop healthy online communities, how you help them grow, and they talked about that is encouraging people to have their cameras on, to be fully participating, particularly when you're not seeing each other in person as much, and also allowing time for some random chit chat in addition to the actual business of the meeting. And that's part of the reason why our meetings actually start at 7:15 Eastern, and we have a half an hour of people getting together, testing whether their microphones work, but also informal chit chat. We do a round of self-introductions, and then we start the formal meeting.
Yeah.
But just so that people can be warmed up a little bit before you dive right in.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that about your meeting. I thought that was really clever. We talked about doing that in ours too. I want to address one question that it's sort of at a district TI level about, once we're able to meet in person again, should we continue with the online, et cetera, or a hybrid? And I do want to mention that per TI policy, if your club is an in-person club, at least the majority of your meetings have to be in person, and you have to vote to allow online attendance. So this is a temporary measure that they've excused us from that policy, and we can have fully online meetings. The expectation is that once we're able to meet in person, we need to go back to that. Or if your club decides, oh, hey, we love this, we're going to keep doing this, then you just have to vote as a club and amend your club bylaws to include that. So that is something that your club will have to decide. Same with some of this, there's a lot of questions around best practices and kind of guides. We're working to put that together in a blog post as well as a website. But again, it's just some ideas. I think each club's going to have these practice sessions and these meetings and figure out what works for your club. Because every club's a little different, so we don't want to mandate how your meeting should run. But we can certainly, we're compiling all this together and giving you some best practices of what other clubs are doing. And if you have a really successful one, please share that with us as well. We've got a press release from Magic Sunrisers of what went really well with theirs. I encourage every club to do the same, and we can post this on our website, on Facebook, et cetera, and just really continue to share and learn from each other. Because everybody's going to figure out different things that we don't. And so we want to hear that. Well, we're at time. I know we might have a few questions, but now that I know how to save the chat, I can save the chat and see if we missed any questions. I think, David, you mentioned you were going to try to get some answers out to us if we missed any.
Yeah, let me.
I don't know that. I think we answered most of them. But I'm going to do the same, and we'll try to include some of these answers, especially to the questions that keep coming up in that website that we're putting together and in the emails that we're sending out. And then anything extra that we get from David and Louise as well. Such a huge thank you, David and Louise, for joining us and doing this for us today. I think we can all do whatever applause we want here. You guys,
Yeah, okay.
this has been super helpful. It's really helpful to hear from someone who's done it before. Did you have any last words, David?
If anybody has a company they work with or an organization that needs some coaching, consulting, think of ringing me up. I'm definitely available for that. But I thank you very much for inviting me to do this. Actually, Lois and I are doing a session for our district later today, this evening. And so this is the warm-up session.
Nice.
So Lois is going to give me a detailed critique, whether I want it or not, about what I did wrong. And we'll work from there.
All right. I would also like to say thank you for the invite. There was one question that I was getting privately a number of times, and it related to contests. And if you do end up doing contests online or whatever this new medium is that we're doing, any tips that you have, and I have one huge tip, since I was the winner of our contest, look directly at the camera. Even though it feels weird and you don't have people and you want to look at the whole screen and kind of talk to people, if I'm looking at you down here, Lori, the bottom corner, it doesn't look right. And if I look up here, over there, it doesn't look right. But if I look right at the camera, the end user and the judges will think you're speaking to them.
Right.
My tip for your contest, if you are a contestant, we invite you to come visit Online Presenters. I know we're going to have a lot of guests this week, but what's 1 or 20 more? We can handle it.
And for those in our district, like I said, we're having a meeting tomorrow with the deck, and then we will provide information specific to our contest, how those are going to run. And then there'll be, of course, briefings like normal, but obviously online, where we'll go over all those details. So hang tight on that. The contest coming up this week might get delayed a little bit as we figure these things out, but you'll hear information from us very soon with whatever's decided and how we're moving forward. In the meantime, any questions that you guys have, feel free to send them to any district leader. We'll compile them and get those answers up on our website. All right, and I am going to save this chat. I love that feature. I couldn't find it before. Super helpful. All right, and everybody's saying thank you, David and Luis. So thank you again.
Thank you. Great job.
And thank you, Stevie.
Right.
Thanks, David.
For arranging this.
Yes,
Thank you, Kitsy.
Thank you.
Thank you for all that you guys have done to put this together and get the word out on it. We worked well as a team to promote this event on such short notice. And David, thank you for stepping up under such short notice to do this.
Yes. Thank
All right.
everyone. I will
Stay in
see
touch.
you all soon, I'm sure. See you through
All right.
the